man that is tied in a little bit more to the NBA than I am, because I'm deep in Phillies land, is our man Devon Givens, who's joining us now. And this portion of this, I love the car hits. I love it. This portion of the segment is brought to you by Bet Parks, the presenting sponsor. The NBA Finals have taken shape here, Devon, and it was a sweep. We'll see if Luka and the Mavs can close it out tonight. But of course, if you want to get in on the action, you can download the Bet Parks Sportsbook to do it. We were just talking about it, Devon. Tomorrow is the day that Bronny has to declare for the drafts or go back to college. And, you know, if he says, I'm going to Ohio State, then you might as well just say LeBron's going to Cleveland. What are your thoughts on this Bronny James situation? Is LeBron going to follow him if he is picked? And should the Sixers do it?
If you listen to LeBron James, he says that that's not going to be the case. He's
sure, he does.
Go somewhere just because his son is gone. But the one thing that's funny, because now that we are looking at the Dallas Mavericks and one more game tonight, potentially for a sweep, right, with the Minnesota Timberwolves before they head to their first NBA Finals in some time, is that Dallas has always been linked to LeBron James, because if there's anybody weird enough and crazy enough to try to do something like this, it would be Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. So that would be drafting Bronny James in the late part of the first round. And then, of course, that's with the commitment, or, hey, we're taking your son. We hope that you can join us too. So it's weird that it's all playing out the way that it is, because Dallas may be headed to the NBA Finals with one more win over the Minnesota Timberwolves. So the Bronny James part, though, Jay, we talked about this a few weeks ago, just because of exactly what you're saying. The combine was going on. He was getting ready for the combine. We hadn't seen any workouts as of yet, but since then, when we were all discussing it, of course you think about it, but not with the first round pick, especially for the Sixers at pick number 16. We were focused on pick number 41 in the second round, and was that enough? And then you hear Brian Windhorst talking about how the Sixers might be a real threat, not a real threat, but a real threat in general when it comes to this. So it's a fascinating thing, because we've seen sons drafted before, right? But never when they were playing in the NBA, and never when the guy is still an all NBA level player, even when he's on the doorstep of 40 years of age, where if you get one, you can probably get the other. So the story is going to be fascinating. We still have a whole month before the draft takes place, and this is not going to stop if he decides to stay in the draft.
So what's your gut right now? Do you think he stays in the draft? Because tomorrow is the deadline for him. You do?
Yeah, I do. And Rich Paul already coming out saying that he's not going to sign a two-way contract. So he's already putting some stuff, right? Some pressure
some
on
qualifiers,
yeah. Exactly, yeah. So I do think he keeps his name in the draft. I was surprised that he did declare in the first place, because of the transfer portal and how that looked. But maybe they just feel like he's a much better NBA player, and he will be a much better player in the free-flowing style of the NBA than the college ranks.
Yeah, I mean, part of it too, you have to remember the kid did have a cardiac arrest, and he did come back, and pretty scary stuff there. I'm shocked he's not going to play one more year at college and try and up that a little bit. We'll find out. You did mention the Windhorst stuff, and that's kind of the reason why I brought it up. Now, Kevin O'Connor from the Ringer yesterday, Devon, says Paul George, plan A for the Sixers. They're going all in. The first time I got a glimpse of hope for Paul George, because I do kind of think he's the best situation here at the end of the day. We'll get your thoughts on that. But Paul George's girl's from New York. We're a quick helicopter ride away or a train ride away. So maybe we got some hope here.
JJ Redick did it. JJ Redick did it, right? Where he commuted. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the case, but sure, that all of that stuff factors in of what players want to do. They speak to their significant other of where they would like to live and what's the situation, of course, for you on the court first. And this is still a winning situation. I'm guessing that Kevin O'Connor was listening to PHLY Sixers.
Definitely.
Since we've talked about this so much during the regular season, into the postseason, certainly in the offseason now, where we've talked about him. And Jay, I agree with you. I've said even though he has all those qualifiers, as you just mentioned with the Rich Paul thing, he has the qualifiers of the injury history in general for him, the age, the fact that you're going to have to max him out and give him at the age of 34 that big contract. that's something that will make you pull back of not wanting to do it. And Derek Brodner talked about this on our show last week, where if OG Anunoby became available, like some of the reports were saying coming out of New York, that he would be number one because of, most importantly, the age at 27 versus 34. But for me, yes, he is the prototypical wing that you look at, Paul George. And I agree with you that that was my number one. OG Anunoby is probably number two in that one because they're both going to be free agents and you don't have to give up any draft capital to sign either one of them. The age is a funny part of it, certainly. But he's going to be the other option. He's not going to be the option for this basketball team should they have to do it. $200 million is a lot of money. But
It's not my
but
money.
it's not our money. And again, you're playing with these two guys where he would be the best wing that they've had since certainly Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. And, I think the likelihood of landing one of these stars is probably pretty minimal. And OG, I wouldn't hate it. That's what's weird about this offseason is there's a bunch of moves that I wouldn't hate, but none that I necessarily love. I think Paul George is the one
Well,
I
you
kind
wouldn't
of
hate him. You wouldn't hate him because you don't have any of those players that we're talking about on your roster currently, right? So
so
they
that's
come with
kind of lead.
caveats, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's kind of leading me into the next question. Like, even if they are able to land one of these stars, what's the rest of this roster going to look like? It feels like from Daryl's comments, Paul Reed's back. Obviously, Ricky Council's back. But then it's kind of unknown. Any sense of, like, guys they might want to keep, other guys, role player types that they might be targeting? What's the rest of this roster going to look like? Because there's a lot of room to fill.
Well, Joel Embiid would like to have Nick Batum back. He said he's not retiring. He told him he's not allowed to retire. Sorry. At the end of the season in the locker room when Kyle was standing there talking to Nick Batum, Joel Embiid
Going
stepped
France,
in.
Devon.
He
Is
did.
that
He
awkward?
did. They can hash that out while they're in Paris for the Olympics. They can
Yeah.
hash that out. He wants Batum back. Of course, Kyle was in the locker room when that was happening, so that was clear. Then you also look at Kelly Oubre, who had a really good season as it turned out. Some rocky things with some off the court stuff that caused him to miss some time
Just stay off the
and a
streets of
few other
Philadelphia,
incidents.
Kelly.
Yeah, just stay out the streets and get an Uber and you'll be fine. But as far as the play on the court, while he wasn't perfect, he was pretty good. And with that pretty good, that's something that's worthy of looking at, of course, to bring back. Then you have the question of the backup point guard campaign, Kyle Lowry. Do you bring any of those two back? And ideally, you would say yes. The Anthony Melton, can you get him on a favorable deal because of the back injury? Is that something that will work for you and him while he tries to rehab not only his back, but also rehab the image of his play and show that he is able to stay on the floor? I'm not sure anybody wants to give him big money over the course of three,
Sure.
4 years with that back injury continuing to flare up where he couldn't even play in the postseason. He would have been a big help against the New York Knicks in that first round. So those are a few that I would think they would look at and they would target. And then you would just have to look at some of the minimum guys, some of that you can get on the mid-level, that you can maybe fit some of those players within that structure, that salary structure for Daryl Morey and the Sixers. So big offseason, of course, important offseason for him, but it certainly starts with the big name. The role players are going to be very important also.
Yeah, you see that with the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, like what hitting on a Lively can
Big
do in the
time.
draft for you can change a whole season. So speaking of the draft, I think we're just under a month away. Are the Sixers in the position where they just want to go best player available because they have so many roster spots to fit, or do you think there's a position in this draft in the low 20s range that might be something they target, or do you think they're just an open book?
I think they're an open book because at 16, to your point, the draft is before everything else. So if you get best player, you get best player. And as we said there just a few minutes ago, they don't have a lot of anything on the roster anyway. The cupboard is bare with just four players that Daryl Morey mentioned that you already laid out as well. So I would think best player available. It's highly unlikely that they keep that pick, but if they do, best player available, maybe they get someone that's a little bit longer than two. We brought up Devin Carter from Providence. Some of the juniors that have played for a little bit, that are a little more seasoned, that can come right in. And even when you look at, although Oklahoma City has been eliminated, the one that we talked about a lot was Kason Wallace coming in at the number 10 overall pick, so a few picks higher, a lottery pick, but still someone who can fill a role on your team, make a difference, play an important part of your basketball team while you're trying to make that push for the NBA Finals. You're not asking them to come in and make a big difference. Maybe they do have a game that swing thing. Look at Jaden Hardy right now for the Dallas Mavericks. He comes in and he's getting some pretty decent minutes for the Dallas Mavericks. They may be 10 minutes, but there's a lot you can do in 10 minutes to help swing a game for your team in a 7-game series. So if they do, I think they go best player available simply because they are limited in what they currently have on their roster. And if they identify someone, that's probably someone that they feel like that can come in and play. Ricky Council, you mentioned him, and maybe that's another guy, year 2 in the system, a big summer league, a full training camp with his basketball team once again in the Nick Nurse system. You might have 2 players that can contribute in a playoff rotation, even if it's just a short amount of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you say 10 minutes, and it's like, well, that's why the Sixers end up losing majority of the time when the big fella leaves the court. Those 10-minute runs kill them. Is there any idea backup center-wise? Like I feel like this is, Devon, we've been talking about this for a decade. When Joel Embiid leaves the court, they just never have really had that guy. Maybe Andre Drummond was the best. It's crucial to address. Any idea out there on who's going to – and if you say Paul Reed, I'm leaving. Is there any idea out there of who's going to be backing up the big fella this year? Because it's a crucial role on this team.
Well, you mentioned Andre Drummond here before. Kyle reported it at the time that they were trying to get him at the deadline, and they thought they had a deal done until they did it. And he's going to be available again maybe this offseason. So with that, that's one. Jonas Valanciunas, a possibility, unless he still has a starting position for him somewhere with the other 28 teams. I'm just eliminating the New Orleans Pelicans because I'm thinking he's not going back. So outside of the Sixers and the Pelicans, the other 28. And those are 2 right there that I would look at and focus on. Although you do maybe want to get a little bit younger, a little more athletic at that position, where you're not going to those older guys, because when you do have someone like Joel Embiid coming off the floor, and the backups are generally guys who can stretch the floor, also can Andre Drummond and Jonas Valanciunas can defend the perimeter, even with that second unit, is the question. So if they don't go with those 2 veterans, maybe look for something a little bit younger, a little more athletic on this team to help them out in that way.
All right, two more for you as we let you go. What's going to be the worst big deal signed in the NBA this offseason? Who's going to get overpaid that doesn't deserve it?
Wow, that's a great question. Yeah, because I'm thinking
overpaid. It's the NBA, you know.
Yeah, someone is. I haven't looked. Of course, all these names are now just starting to pop in my head because you say that, and someone is going to get overpaid that is not worthy of it.
Here.
Yeah, hopefully it's not here. So if we're going to say not here and not overpaid, let's go to big man that Kyle brought up on, I think it was Thursday or Friday, Jackson Hayes. I'm not a Jackson Hayes fan, and there is a surplus, though, where you need some backup big men. Played for the Lakers, did some okay things, but I still think he's just an energy guy that's annoying and doesn't do much for me. So I would say Jackson Hayes is going to get more than a 1-year deal and overpaid.
Nice. Get his
Can't
ass.
stand that guy. Don't bring him here.
Yeah.
Daryl Morey, listen to me.
Yeah. So Devon, I'm very jealous watching Drew Holiday and the Boston Celtics play. Drew Holiday, to me, might be the most underrated NBA player in the last 10 years. Why is this guy just given away to make room for another superstar when he himself, he may not be a superstar difference maker, but he's damn close, and he's one of the best two-way guards in the league. Why is this guy underrated in the NBA? Why doesn't he get the respect he kind of deserves a little more?
Because he doesn't look for any limelight. He stays to himself. He doesn't argue with officials. He can fit in with any team. So anywhere you put him, he's going to go out there, do all the little things, the intangibles, and just try to help the team win. And that's what's great about Drew Holiday. That's why most people want him. And someone like Giannis is silly for not wanting to keep him there. And because of his defensive presence, make a big difference there. That's why he was available. That's why he decided to go to Boston. And that's why he's headed to another NBA Finals where he has an opportunity to get another championship over the last, 3 years after winning in 21 with the Milwaukee Bucks. He just goes about his business and doesn't make waves, except for making waves by causing enough havoc on the defensive end where he's an all-NBA defender. and certainly on the offensive side where he might be very quiet and then he goes off for 8 points in a row to help get your team back in it, like he did in the series against the Indiana Pacers. One of my favorite players to watch. He's a terror defensively, knows how to run a basketball team, and just knows how to win. And that's what makes him so valuable to a basketball team. That's why he got that extension with Boston. And that's why he going back to another NBA Finals, because he's that important, man. And for someone like Giannis to not understand the value after you had that, and seeing, as much as I love Damian Lillard as a player offensively, looking what Drew Holiday means, where you have the offense from Giannis, you have the offense from Drew for what he gives you, the offense from Chris Middleton when he is healthy. That's a big loss, man. And now Giannis has to sit back and just watch his former teammate play in another NBA Finals.
Yeah, like Dame Lillard's not making that game-winning steal on Saturday night to close out the game. You know what I mean? Like, those are the little
Yeah.
things that don't
Mm-hmm.
show up on SportsCenter every night, but they help you win, to your point. I love Drew Holiday. I love watching him play.
Same.
It's pretty cool to see his revenge tour going back to the finals. All right, Devon, what time are the Sixers today? 2:30?
2:30 today. Kyle Newbeck, Derek Bodner, myself, also all week 2:30,
Love it.
and a lot to talk about, man. With all these things just popping up everywhere with the Sixers attached to it.
I lied. One last one. Is the LeBron Phoenix rumor that's popped up that he would take a vet minimum and go chase out there?
Ah,
You think there's any validity to that?
I don't think so. Not really. Now, Bronny is working out for the Suns, so just put two and two together there. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Every team that may be in contention that think they can offer LeBron James the vet minimum to come to their team and help them win. Why would he do that when he can still command $50 million?
We all silly like the mayor. We all silly like the mayor.